President Trump announced a trade deal with the European Union yesterday, averting an economic war between the two allies, at least in the short term. NBC News Chief Justice and National Affairs correspondent Kelly O'Donnell has those details.
On the president's own turf.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
One battle in the tense trade war over. A much-anticipated deal between the U.S. and Europe reached at Mr. Trump's private club in Scotland.
It's a very big deal. It's the biggest of all the deals.
This new framework comes just days before the president's evolving tariff deadline of August 1st.
We have a deal. We have a trade deal between the two largest economies in the world. And it's a big deal. It's a huge deal.
The White House says the president paused his private golf outing here to meet with the EU Commission president at her request. Ursula von der Leyen represents the 27-country alliance, among the largest U.S. trading partners.
It will bring stability. It will bring predictability. That's very important for our businesses on both sides of the Atlantic.
This preliminary agreement sets a 15% import tax, far less than the threatened tariffs of 30% and 50%, but still a real cost. The president emphasized that Europe also agrees to make new investments and buy American military equipment and energy.
It's going to bring a lot of unity and friendship.
The impact at home. Nashville small business Flora relies on supplies from Europe. And Kirby Howitt says she is hit with this kind of tariff.
It's a lot to shoulder for small business owners because we're taking care of ourselves. I have a family. And then I have employees that I feel responsible for.
Another question? The agreement does not determine tariffs for popular European favorites like wines and spirits.
We're going to circle back on the wines and spirits. Thanks to NBC's Kelly O'Donnell for that reporting. And joining us now, business reporter for Semaphore, Rohan Goswami. So I want to start by getting your take on that agreement between the U.S. and the EU. On the one hand, analysts are looking at it saying, OK, this isn't going to stop the flow of global trade between two major trading partners, but there's still costs that are going to be passed on to consumers.
You know, Ali, you and I have talked about this. Trade deals are not easy. They're hard. They're hammered out over years, and they take a lot of input from business, from governments, and that's not what happened here, right? This was an impromptu meeting. Trump graciously deigned to pause his golf round to meet with von der Leyen. And it shows, right? There are a lot of questions we have, as you said, about wine and spirits, but also about, take, for example, steel, which is one of the highest tariffed goods coming out of the region right now. There's still a 50% tariff on that. You also have questions about the pharmaceutical industry, right? I mean, if you think about some of Europe's largest exports to the U.S., it's pharmaceuticals, it's drugs. Those are supposed to be hit with tariffs. At the same time, the president is saying he wants to bring healthcare costs down for everyday Americans. So, you know, like as with many things, it's a mixed bag. There's no question that these trade deals, the threat of tariffs, they're working, right? The impact on the consumer, we haven't seen yet, right? Inflation remains generally in line with estimates. The Fed still hasn't cut rates, in part because of the uncertainty. But other than that, we're not seeing an impact on the consumer yet. That being said, with a 15% bump to cost, we probably will pretty soon.
Yeah, especially because, and I've had other folks, including you, come on this show and wonder if the reason we're not seeing the impact of these tariffs yet is because businesses knew that they were coming and were able to stock up in the short term, but then are going to have to look at their product line and say, OK, is it now that we start passing the costs on to consumers? If and when is the game that we've been playing. I think the other piece of this deal, both with Japan and then with the EU, that caught my attention is the way that there are these massive investments. It's $600 billion for the EU, $550 billion from Japan. And my question was, what does that actually go towards? And I was struck by one White House official telling the Wall Street Journal over the weekend that the White House could use this as something as a sovereign wealth fund. Can you explain to folks what that is and why that would be a very interesting move with ripple effects for a White House to make?
Sure. A sovereign wealth fund is exactly that. We have these in America. Alaska has enormous natural gas and oil wealth and has actually created a special fund for its citizens that pays them out a check every single year. Countries like Norway, like the UAE, anyone that has abundant natural resources, a lot of times they'll turn to create these things when they're government owned, but for the benefit of the people. Trump has been fixated on a sovereign wealth fund since before he took office. It's not surprising that he might want a personal investment pool with which to dole out favors or prop up certain industries. There's a problem with that, though, which is that natural resources, while they're owned by the American people, aren't generally exploited by the government, right? We cut deals with American companies who exploit it in return for concessions. So we don't actually own things. We don't own oil reserves and make money off of those the way that Norway or the UAE or Saudi Arabia might. Now, as you pointed out, the Japanese deal includes a very unusual provision, $550 billion worth of investments and funding that's coming directly from the Japanese government. This is an allied nation that's basically agreed to write Trump a $500 billion check. And that's unusual for a Republican president when you think about the idea of a government deciding who wins and loses, right? I mean, the point the Journal made was that Trump could decide to fund a new semiconductor factory for Intel, right? Which is something we kind of did with the CHIPS Act, but at a much larger scale. And you're seeing this government take steps to move in the public markets already. Just a few weeks ago, they took a $400 million, I think it was, stake in a publicly traded company that deals with rare earth minerals. This is something that, as far as we could tell, was unprecedented. And it points to a larger desire by Trump to control the direction of the economy on a granular level that, other than wartime, most presidents haven't shown an interest or an ability to do, right? He's talking about not letting companies pass along costs of tariffs. He's talking about controlling auto imports. It's quite unusual.
Yeah, it's unusual, but then when you also extend it to the way that he's trying to pressure the Fed, which is typically its own independent branch, it all does fit that larger model that you're talking about. Rohan Goswami, there's so much here, but we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you, as always, for coming on.
Always a pleasure.